We saw the boat come by first, and we took the first chance we could get out of there.
There's no going back in. There's nothing to go back into.
This is a very, very serious and unprecedented storm.
We need to recognize it's going to be a new normal.
An unprecedented storm that will leave the state of Texas recovering for years to come. Thanks for joining us for a special one-hour edition of Capitol Tonight. I'm Karina Kling. It's an event unlike anything Texas has ever seen. Hurricane Harvey barreled into the Texas coast Friday night as a Category 4 storm, leaving a path of destruction, flooded homes and businesses, and thousands fleeing to higher ground. Over the next hour, we'll hear from the people in the storm's path, the heroes who helped save lives, the response from elected officials, and what's next as the state is faced with the long road to recovery. We begin in Houston, the nation's fourth largest city. It's where the storm stalled and has dumped dozens of inches of rain. Some areas may see more than 50 inches by the time the storm ends. Unlike other cities in the storm's path, Houston did not order evacuations before Harvey hit, and countless residents were trapped in flooded homes. City officials have defended their decision, and Land Commissioner George P. Bush reminded people of Hurricane Rita in 2005. That's when mass evacuations of millions of people from the coast during a heat wave resulted in dozens of deaths.
To attempt to evacuate a city of 5 million, 6 million people, metropolitan area, it's a daunting task, and to do that in a short period of time. Also, this storm was really only about a tropical storm, 2-3 days before it hit landfall as a Category 4. So, this is a unique storm. It's historic, truly landmark, and every storm is going to be different in terms of the response.
Joining us now by phone from Houston is State Senator Sylvia Garcia. Senator Garcia, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Karina.
Well, thousands of evacuees, rescues, more water. What have you seen? What is the city like? I know you've been out there surveying some of the damage and just seeing some of the rescues taking place. What have you seen?
Well, Karina, I've been through many of them. I've been through Tropical Storm Allison, Katrina, Ike, and I've never seen anything like this. There is flooding and high waters in places that have never had flooding or high waters before. So I think it's been tough navigating those waters. It's been tough for rescue teams. It's been tough for the suppliers to come in with goods for not only the Red Cross, but to restock grocery stores. And it's been hard to even navigate the waters to get some of all of our volunteers in place. So it's been a difficult period, but we're really thankful for all the support that we've gotten across the state and for the response from Houston to end this tragedy. So we're working, we're resisting, we're not going to let Harvey get the better of us.
Do you think the city should have been evacuated? Lots of talk surrounding that. What do you think would have been the best decision there?
Well, it's sort of like, my old days of being a judge. I never tried to second guess what a jury did because I wasn't in the jury room with hearing all the facts, hearing all of what's happened. But I can tell you, again, having been through evacuations and being at the table during some of the previous hurricanes, it's a tough decision to make, and I'm sure that our county judge and our mayor both made the right decision that was needed to be made at that time. I think we can all kind of try to second guess it, but they've been through these discussions. They've know what it's like to have to move millions of people out of here from our freeways. It would have been probably more catastrophic in terms of loss of death. People need to remember that the last major evacuation, we lost, I think it was over 100 people that get stuck in traffic, that don't have the food, the water, the toilet facilities that they need. So I think it was the right decision, and I stand behind the mayor and the county judge.
Lots of talk as well about whether the city of Houston was prepared for this. Do you think with previous decisions, new developments, really hurt the city for withstanding any kind of event like this?
I think we're prepared. We've been through a lot of dress rehearsals, but I think we need to keep in mind that every event, every catastrophic event like this is different, the thing that makes this one so different is that it turned from, a hurricane to a tropical storm to just a very, very flood event. That these rain waters are completely unprecedented. We've never seen it before, and we're likely not to see it again in our lifetime. I mean, this is not just a 100-year event. It's probably a 300 or 500-year event. So I think, again, it's sometimes easy to kind of second guess, but when you look at all the facts and you look at all the signs and the work that's being done by all the people who follow these events, when they call it a catastrophic, life-threatening event, it is.
What about the state and federal, even the local response? With what you've seen, I know that Governor Abbott gave the federal government an A+ and FEMA an A+ for the work that they've been doing. Would you say that that's what you've been seeing as well?
Well, I know that FEMA is here. Right now I'm talking from the George R. Brown Convention Center Command Center. I've been here most of today, and I know that FEMA is here today. I don't believe that we can. I don't believe I can grade FEMA because I'm not directly worked with the federal liaison group or the federal team. But I can tell you I've been on all the calls that the state has had, and I've been on calls here with the mayor, a conference call with his emergency team, and I think the work that's being done between the city and the state has been great. I think they've been very responsive, and I think that it's the taxpayers can be assured that their local government is working hand in hand with state government to make sure that we always put the safety and the rescue of our citizens first, and then we'll work on recovery today, tomorrow, and into the future, because this is the kind of event that doesn't stop when the waters subside. It doesn't stop when it moves over to Louisiana. It doesn't stop. The real recovery begins tomorrow.
Senator Garcia, you said you're there at the convention center at the George R. Brown. Talk to us about what you're hearing from the evacuees, the people that had to be rescued, the people that can't go to their homes.
Well, I think, they're just happy to have a place where they can take cover from the rain. They're happy to be able to get a place to just rest, because many of them had been waiting for rescue to come to a shelter, to come to a holding site. So I think they're just grateful that they're alive. They're grateful that they've got help. And I think it's also remarkable that many of them are also, wanting to volunteer and help. So I think it's, again, a sign of what always surfaces, and that's the best of humanity. I think everyone here wants to make sure that everyone knows that this center is open, as all centers are. The doors are open. No one is going to get turned away, and everybody will be treated equally, fairly, and with dignity and respect.
Lots of evacuation sites, lots of cities opening up their arms to these evacuees. Senator Garcia, stay safe out there. Thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate your time.
Absolutely. Thank you for having us, and thank you to all of the Texans from throughout that have been sending support and prayers.
President Trump traveled to Texas to survey some of the storm damage and take in the state's emergency operations center. The president pledged his commitment to rebuilding Texas, but as lawmakers acknowledge that effort will most likely come at a high cost. Our Max Gordon has more.
President Trump touched down Tuesday to a state still very much in crisis, with thousands displaced along the storm-ravaged Gulf Coast. And floodwaters still rising in Houston.
This was of epic proportion. Nobody's ever seen anything like this.
At a fire station in Corpus Christi, the president pledged his support for Texas alongside Governor Greg Abbott.
I want to be looked at in 5 years and 10 years from now as this is the way to do it.
Meanwhile, Governor Abbott says he's grateful to the president for getting the ball rolling on federal support before the storm even hit.
Texas has been tested, but our response to this challenge has been made much more effective because of the very effective way the president and his staff has helped Texas respond to this challenge.
But long-term federal relief for the state will eventually require a spending bill from Congress. And President Trump acknowledged that the price tag will most likely be high as he toured the State Emergency Command Center.
Probably there's never been anything so expensive in our country's history. There's never been anything so historic in terms of damage.
And though Senator John Cornyn voted against a $54 billion Superstorm Sandy spending bill back in 2012 because of tacked-on proposals, the senator says this time things are even more serious and Congress needs to act fast.
Looks like the magnitude of this storm is going to be a couple of times bigger, at least, than Hurricane Sandy.
And with rain still falling in Texas, relief can't arrive soon enough. Max Gordon, Capitol Tonight.
President Trump has said he could return to Texas as early as Saturday, where he would tour the flooded portions of Houston and East Texas. Governor Abbott has activated the entire Texas National Guard to assist with recovery efforts alongside FEMA and other officials. That's close to 12,000 troops. Approximately 3,000 Texas National Guardsmen had already been deployed Sunday. FEMA estimates 30,000 people might need to be temporarily relocated to shelters as a result of Harvey.
Everyone's in need. I mean, people from San Antonio, Austin have been driving up here and dropping off water. And as you can see right now, it's kind of slow, but it comes in waves. And we've been busy all day today.
And stay with us. Next, hear the heroic stories of some Harvey survivors. You're watching Capitol Tonight. After days of rain in LaGrange, the Texas town located between Austin and Houston has been dealing with extreme flooding. The Colorado River reached 54 feet Monday, flooding a large part of the town. Our Aaron Murray takes us through the streets turned rivers as residents get a glimpse of their flooded homes.
It's forced people out of their homes and businesses, and it's water like this that have left people wondering what they're going to come home to in the days to come. It's a town underwater.
I ain't never seen this.
I would say within, minutes, it just came up at a foot at a time.
The town of LaGrange in a panic.
There's no going back in. There's nothing to go back into.
Patty Sheelick lost her trailer. The fast-moving water swept it away with so many others. Highways and homes surrounded by the flood. This is the living room. I'm just going to have Tony kind of show you around. I mean, here's their wrap-around couch. Here's their lazy boy. Joel Rios and his wife live here. Now evacuated, they grab clothes and any necessities they can.
Emotionally, it's terrifying seeing everything you own just in the water. For the most part, it's just, what are we going to do?
But humans are far from the only ones feeling like they are drowning. A herd of cattle with calves were rescued after standing in water for hours. Farmers drove them down the center of Main Street to safety. People have just been terrified because the water's been coming on.
Oh, yeah.
What are they afraid of losing out here?
Well, your houses, your homes, your property, your cattle.
Parts of LaGrange looking like rivers, but really,
no, it's a road.
Those who no longer have homes, now it's shelters or hotels. But some hotels even are submerged.
As soon as the water starts coming, I ran to every single room, knocking them and say, please move out, take your car, get your stuff, and go.
The Cottonwood Inn is also her home.
I never think that this flood will happen here.
10 years of work destroyed in 10 hours.
Yes, I am still shaking. I haven't seen this in my life. This is terrible.
But keeping the town afloat are the people.
We're like family. Everybody knows everybody here.
Helping hands with big hearts, ready for LaGrange to hopefully soon dry out. The mayor tells us the water is fortunately going down, but it's not going down fast enough. It will probably be Wednesday before people can get back into flooded areas like this. Reporting on scene here in LaGrange, I'm Aaron Murray, Spectrum News.
One rescuer in a Houston suburb almost lost his life, and we got a look at the devastating floods in Cyprus. Our Steph Manicero has more on the statewide recovery effort.
We saw a ton of people coming from all across the state. We're talking Austin, San Antonio, Abilene, College Station, people with boats who really all they want to do is help. And we actually had the chance to ride along with some of those people. And we were getting reports of people who were stuck. These people had friends who were stuck in their homes, unable to get out with water rising and pouring in. And unfortunately, we were unable to get to those people because of, first of all, the current of that water was very strong. Also, a lot of trees were down, as well as very narrow waterways. So we actually then moved locations and saw just an area where dozens of boats were being launched onto a major highway 290. And unfortunately, a lot of those people were having the same problems, again, with the current and just running into obstacles that made it very difficult. And we actually, it became a very scary situation at one point. 3 of those people who were trying to rescue others got into some trouble for themselves. Their boat capsized, and they were having trouble staying above water, and luckily that they were able to be saved. We actually saw one of those men return to land, and it was a very emotional return. He was very shaken, needless to say, in pain as well, and just watching his family hug him, his wife hug him, his son hug him, as well as all these strangers who didn't even know him. Just a testament of all the help that people want to give here in Texas. And unfortunately, it's not the easiest conditions to give that help at this time, just with the amount of water that the city and its surrounding areas are seeing. But for now, we're in Waller. Steph Manacero for Spectrum News.
The American Red Cross says there are more than 17,000 people in the state seeking refuge in shelters, and that number will rise. In Houston and the Gulf area, nearly 50 shelters are open for those displaced or fleeing floodwaters. We spoke with one volunteer at Houston's George R. Brown Convention Center who described what she's witnessed.
Some of it's really heartbreaking because there are people who are sleeping on cardboard. There are no more cots, there are no more mattresses, and so there are babies and families, and in the area where there's dogs with their families like on cardboard, and it's heartbreaking. But at the same time, there are so many people from all around that are coming in to help and volunteer and give their time.
Further north, several cities and counties are taking in anyone who needs somewhere to stay. In San Antonio, the city's fire department says about 1,000 people fleeing Harvey have come in, and they're ready to take in 10,000 more. Current shelters include the San Antonio Reception Center at 200 Gambler Road, Harlan Clark on Stout Drive, and New Life Fellowship Church in Universal City. Austin leaders are also making room to shelter more evacuees. They're setting up a mega shelter at the convention center downtown. Right now, the Delco Center on Pecan Brook Drive, Lanier High School and Peyton Gin Road, and Bartholomew District Park in East Austin are open to evacuees. And Dallas has already a mega shelter up and running downtown. Mayor Mike Rawlings says the Kay Bailey Hutchison Convention Center is ready to hold up to 5,000 people. At least 7 shelters are open in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Up next, Corpus Christi was in the direct path of Hurricane Harvey. We speak with a state lawmaker who represents the area to get his take on the damage and what's next. The path of Harvey took a toll on dozens of Texas towns. The hurricane made landfall near Corpus Christi. And check out these images coming out of Rockport. Some buildings completely destroyed, others still standing but in a sea of debris. Meanwhile, residents continue to work on their homes and businesses after being allowed back to assess the damage. State Representative Todd Hunter lives and represents the area of Corpus. He joins us now by phone from there. Representative, thanks so much for being with us.
Glad to be on the phone.
Well, now that people have been able to get out and assess some of the damage, what does it look like? Talk to us about what you're seeing out there.
Well, here's kind of how this thing happened. It was a tropical storm, and just think that all of a sudden the winds get so increased because of the heat and the hot water. It gets into a Category 4 last Friday. At 5 o'clock, the winds are up. My house, power goes out. Most of Corpus Christi and the surrounding area goes. We go into pitch black. I can tell you for about 9 hours, it sounded like a jet engine, just going. But nobody knew the damage until sunlight came up without power. So about 7:30 a.m. Saturday, it looked like a nightmare. There were telephone poles all over the place, fences knocked down, debris all over the place. You had to be very careful where you drove, because if you could get in your car, because there was no electricity if they were in garages, you would have to be careful about power lines. Now, that was just in Corpus Christi. Then in Rockport, Aransas Pass, Port Aransas, where the eye came in and really hit, buildings collapsed. I was in Aransas Pass with the hospital that services the whole region. It's basically destroyed. They're trying to figure out where to provide medical care while this hospital is trying to be rebuilt to take care of people. Rockport, I was there yesterday, and goodness gracious, it looked like a lawnmower had gone right through that town. And Port Aransas, driving in, it was like pole after pole, electronics. It was dangerous even getting in. But the good thing is people are trying to get back. We're different than Houston because we were the wind part of the hurricane.
Right.
And then Houston got the water.
What about with the power outages, the cell service? I know we've been talking over the last couple of days, and there are certain spots where you're not able to talk on the phone. How are the recovery efforts coming there?
Well, we kind of got two. We have power and phone. Just to let you know, as we're talking, I don't have power. I've been out of power, still don't. And I can tell you in the middle of the night, it's pretty hot. You're living in a coastal zone with 100% humidity in the 80s. Cell phone service, Port Aransas, Aransas Pass, Rockport, Ingleside. They have very sketchy cell service. They're not back. Some people have to go to little causeways to try to get a signal. Corpus Christi is getting better. The problem is you could be talking on the phone, then it goes out. So we're not back to normal. It'll take a little bit of time.
We're talking years of recovery ahead. The governor, president, FEMA, all pointing to years of cleanup. What can you tell us? What can state lawmakers do? How can the legislature, how will they step in and help?
Well, I think the good thing that federal and state and local can do is the good thing is that folks work together, federal, state, and local. And what we need to do is make sure that we take this incident, this event, wind and water, and make sure that we've got a plan in the future so that we can make everything work in a constructive manner. From the state standpoint, I think we need to be very, very constructive but supportive of emergency management. You know, we've had flooding, we've had hail, now we're having hurricanes. Emergency management, emergency funding is a big thing for Texas. We're a big state. We have a lot of weather. And with federal government and state, we need to do everything we can to move resources in. I will tell you right now, even though it's been a very strong event, there's been great cooperation from local, state, federal. But from the state standpoint, where I am involved, we need to make sure we help local communities and that the state understands these type of weather events and really helps emergency management.
Yeah, I mean, you never can be too prepared for such events, but do you think Texas could have been better prepared? We're hearing that from a lot of people around the state, and whether there could have been more things put in place to have been better prepared for such a storm.
You know, it's always easy to backseat drive. I think, you know, it was a tough, terrible event. But nobody knew how quickly it would go from a tropical storm into a Category 4 life-threatening storm. It just developed up on Friday, and everybody was having to react that fast. That sort of weather, it's hard to just get prepared with the snap of the fingers. But nobody knew then it would go into Houston, become a water deluge like it did. So predictability is hard. I do think we need to be looking at more science, technology, and practicality on wind and water for this great state. But I think we were prepared. I think it's execution. I think we're trying to execute as well as we can. The unknown is it just takes a long time to figure out how the damage hit us and how long it will be to take.
Lastly, you said you've been without power for quite some time now. How are you holding up personally? What happened with your house, your business? What can you tell us with regards to you?
Well, the storm hit Friday into Saturday morning. Many of our areas do not have power, or they have a backup generator. All the services are still not. There's a limit on gas. A lot of gasolines can only get premium, or there's not a lot of fuel yet because it's hard to get back into the community. So we are kind of waking up, getting back into it. I think good progress is made. I will tell you, though, when you don't have power for several days, you certainly learn how you wish you had it when you need it. The good thing is some areas are already up and running, but there's some areas like Port Aransas and Aransas Pass and Rockport who really, really need the help. And right now, just some of those roadways are being made passable so people can go check on their homes.
Representative Hunter, stay safe out there. Thank you so much for talking to us. We will continue to check back in with you.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you. Still ahead, Harvey's destruction has put a new state law under scrutiny. Why you might want to file a weather-related insurance claim by Friday. For the thousands of Texans hit hard by Harvey, attorneys are urging homeowners to file insurance claims by Friday. That's because Texas is changing how weather-related insurance lawsuits are handled starting September 1st. Supporters say it's a way to protect insurance companies from frivolous hailstorm-related lawsuits, though the law applies to all weather-related property damage. Opponents warn the law will significantly reduce the ability of homeowners to hold insurance companies accountable if they delay storm-related settlements for months or years. And joining me now to discuss this law further, Ware Wendell, Executive Director of the consumer rights group Texas Watch, and Lee Parsley here next to me, General Counsel for Texans for Lawsuit Reform. Thank you to both of you for being with us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Karina.
Ware, I wanted to start with you because why are you encouraging Texans to file these claims by Friday? What is the biggest problem here that you see?
Our organization since 1998 has stood up for policyholders. We fought this law that's going into effect in a few days here on September the 1st because we're very concerned that it's going to impede and hurt the legal rights of Texas property owners. The bill goes into effect on September the 1st, and so we're asking people if their property is safe to return to, if it is safe to come back to the area, and check with local authorities first. If they can, it's a good idea to file a written notice of their claim as soon as they discover damage.
And Lee, your group pushed for this legislation. I mean, with what he's saying, should this be a concern for homeowners?
Well, I actually agree with what Ware has just said. As soon as it is safe for people to return, filing claims is what they should do with their insurance company. Our concern has been that there has been a fair amount of misinformation on social media particularly, but also in some news reports that indicate that you must file claims before September 1st in order to have a claim, that somehow the law affects the claims process or somehow the law affects your coverage under your insurance policy. And it does not affect either the process or your coverage. So filing a claim between now and September 1st is fine. It's appropriate if they have the ability to do that safely, but it is not critical to them, is what I think the message we would like to get out there today is this misinformation on the web. It's like many other things. You can't believe everything you read on the web, and this is one of those bits of misinformation that's, I think, panicking people who are already in a very difficult circumstance.
Will it mean higher penalty fees after September 1st?
The law, let me start with what the law doesn't do, and I'm happy to get there, of course. But the law does not, for the most part, apply to the people who are suffering harm right now in Harris County and along the coast. The law does not apply to floodwaters because most of those people are covered by the National Flood Insurance Program. For the most part, it won't apply to people because they are covered by the Texas Windstorm Insurance Association plans, and those are not covered by this bill. So the bill does not cover most of those people, and of course most people, according to the Texas Department of Insurance, 99% of people work out their claims without a lawsuit. So it doesn't even apply to many people who are suffering some damage right now, and then those that do, a very small percentage of them will ever pursue a lawsuit against their insurance company. So while the law about the penalty amount, the percentage that might be paid as a penalty, will change somewhat after September 1st. That's just a small part of the overall effect of the law.
Where do you think some of this is being overblown, as Lee is saying?
Well, let me first say it's a real shame that we're having to talk about Texas property owners' legal rights at a time like this. We have an unfolding humanitarian crisis in the state of Texas. This will continue to develop in the weeks and months to come. I have family and friends trapped in the waters in Houston right now. And the fact that people have to be concerned about their legal rights is a real shame. Let me answer your question directly. The law will change on September the 1st, and penalty interest that insurance companies are subject to will be slashed nearly in half. For many years, companies that slow pay claims, that drag out the claims process, if they're taken to court, have been subject to an 18% penalty interest. That changes on Friday. It gets slashed down to a rate set at 10%. And so that's why we're encouraging people, if it's safe, if they can, to file their claims, because the law is going to change.
What about with the national versus state law, though? As you know, Lee was saying, with only about 15% of homes in Houston's Harris County, for example, are covered by FEMA-administered flood insurance programs. So how does it relate with the national versus the state laws?
It's a very complicated issue that we're all getting our hands around and will continue to over time. You have different types of insurance policies. Right along the coast, many people have windstorm coverage through the Texas Windstorm Insurance Association. And in 2011, the insurance companies pushed through a new law that we fear is going to hurt TWIA policyholders as they have to bring windstorm claims. There is federal flood insurance. Some people have it, some people do not. A very small segment of the market has private flood insurance. The bill is defined so broadly to affect all forces of nature that the word flood is actually included as well. But we expect that many people will not have private flood insurance, and those who do have flood insurance will be governed by the federal flood insurance program.
Lee, some have called this a money grab by the insurance industry. What's your response to that?
Well, it's not. The Texas legislature looked at a specific set of facts and took action. That set of facts was that we were being overwhelmed in Texas with lawsuits against insurance companies based on allegations of underpaid claims. We went from a lawsuit environment of about 700 a year against insurance companies to a lawsuit environment of 10,000 a year against insurance companies, a 20-time more increase against insurance companies. And that's not just my information. Texas Department of Insurance indicated a 15 times increase of litigation. So there was a great increase in litigation, and the legislature took action to address that, while at the same time, and this is important, we still in Texas will have the most consumer-friendly, the strongest consumer protection insurance laws in the United States of America after September 1st. Things did change to try to get the lawyers out of the ambulance chasing business, to try to guarantee that insurance adjusters will come to Texas and work big claims like we're having right now. At those things, there were things that changed, but we will continue to have the strongest, without question, insurance laws in the state of Texas of any nation, of any state in the nation.
And I'll end with you, because I mean, we have heard, there are some bad apples, bad actors in the legal profession. Do you think some of the stipulations that are being put in place with this law will be helpful?
We had many laws on the books before this law, which we call the Blue Tarp Bill because of its effect, was put into place to deal with any bad actors, whether they were insurance companies, attorneys, adjusters, and we would support any law that would crack down on any wrongdoing. What this bill does, though, is something entirely different. It has very broad application. Basically, if you have a roof in this state, this law applies to you. And it slashes those slow pay penalties. It's going to force many of these cases into our overburdened federal courts, which is basically foreign shopping for foreign insurance companies, where it takes twice as long to get a jury trial. And it's going to make it much harder to get an attorney, drive up costs, insurance companies have private armies of lawyers, and if you cannot get a lawyer to help you take on an insurance company, if they've forced you to that point, you're a lamb to the slaughter.
Real quickly, I just want to ask you, Lee, because of all of the Texans that are out there hurting and going to be picking up after this storm, what's your message to them when there are some concerns over this new law?
Well, my message to them today is that, in fact, unlike what Ware's just said to you, the last thing they need to be worried about right now is making insurance claims. They need to look out for themselves and their family and their friends and their neighborhoods. And when they have time and can do so safely, they can file their insurance claims. They can expect their insurance companies, we hope, to act promptly and to pay those claims fully. We hope for that, all of us do. And if they have a problem with getting that done, again, they have the strongest consumer protection laws in the nation available to them, even after September 1st. So go about taking care of yourself and your family. Worry about your insurance claim later.
An issue that's not going away. We'll get you both in to talk about this after Friday. Thanks so much for being on the show. We appreciate it. Our political analysts are in next to discuss the political lessons that can be learned from Harvey. More Capital Tonight right after the break.
This was of epic proportion. Nobody's ever seen anything like this.
President Donald Trump there with Governor Abbott. Trump touring some of the damage left behind by Hurricane Harvey. We want to bring in our political analyst now, Democrat Harold Cook, and Republican Ted DeLisi to talk about some of the political ramifications behind all of this and the fallout, the response from the federal, state, local government. It's under a microscope. First big event for both Governor Abbott and President Trump. How do you think they're doing so far?
You know, not bad, to tell you the truth. I will say this. I think the top, meaning the governor and the president, they set a tone. The real work is done by professionals, crisis management, coordinators that are trained to do this. It does seem from everybody from the new FEMA administrator who was untested before this, all the way down to the first responders on the coast and in Houston, it seems like everybody's absolutely on their game, and it does not seem they were unprepared for this. I think Greg Abbott has done a good job at that. I think Donald Trump, I wonder about. He's had some minor missteps today. I suspect, though, that my suspicion is tied up more in a generalized lack of credibility in this president than anything else. I think a lot of people are like me, and they're going to wonder whether he is here to advance the recovery effort or whether he is here to benefit from the recovery effort.
Ted, what's your response to that?
So, I mean, first of all, I just want to take a moment to, I think, compliment, many of the first responders and many of the Texans who have stepped up to help their neighbors, help their community, whether it be by boat. Some of these pictures we've seen are just extraordinary courage. I just think that there's so many times when I think people wonder about the character of the people who live here and the people who grew up here and what they call themselves. This to me was like this kind of unexpected. We knew it was going to hit landfall on Corpus Christi, but I just don't think anyone kind of understood that, you know, this record torrential rain would just unending would just sit on top of Harris County, and 6.5 million people, you know, the fourth largest city in the country, would endure what I think will end up being probably the worst natural disaster in Texas history. In my opinion, you elect someone governor based upon philosophy and their story, but the things that can define you as a leader are the things that are never in an ad and that you can't possibly predict. This is one of those moments. It's something that I think that Abbott sounds reassuring, which I think is a good thing. And I think we've seen some good initial steps, but there is a whole lot. I don't think that we're going to be able to see the Harris County. We're going to have a very significant change in how this storm goes. I'm with Harold. I think there is incredible bad news as people start to uncover individuals in their attics or other individuals that have drowned that we just don't know about. It's, you know, I don't think people necessarily understand how big Harris County is, for one thing. So This is just part of a terrible tragedy, and a terrible tragedy at this moment. We need unifying leaders. We need people who can coordinate well. We need individuals like Colonel Steve McCraw at DPS to step up. He was there for Katrina and Rita and these other issues, these other hurricanes. But this is a different type of crisis. It's not on the coast. It's a major flood. And I think the resources, calling out the entire National Guard, I think was the right move. But there's a lot left to know.
The evacuations, a lot has been talked about regarding why didn't Houston evacuate, why weren't leaders telling people to evacuate. Mayor Turner obviously defending his position there. Do you think that this was the right call?
Oh, I think it was absolutely the right call, and anybody who doesn't agree with that has never been to the Houston area. I was born and raised in Houston, lived there for almost 30 years. Look, they tried that. It was called Hurricane Rita. More than 100 people died evacuating for Hurricane Rita, and here's why. I mean, it created massive traffic jams. People got stuck out there, their cars idling on I-45 and I-10. Their cars eventually ran out of gas. There was no gas, there was no shelter, there was no food, there was no water, there was no anything. It was an unmitigated disaster. Now, you can learn from that, and you can think, and you can decide, okay, we're going to have more targeted evacuations. But target what? I mean, we are on an unprecedented rain event. They had no idea what would flood because there is no precedent for it. There was no data to show who would be evacuated and who wouldn't. I think both Mayor Turner and County Judge Ed Emmett, I don't think there's any wiggle room between them and the governor, and I think they made the right call.
I mean,
there was some at the beginning.
There was some, and I think the most interesting part of this is that Bill King, the individual who ran against Sylvester Turner, had an op-ed in the New York Times where he supported Sylvester Turner's decision to basically say, and commented about the fact that 130 people had died in the evacuation of Rita. I mean, look, when you have 6.5 million people that live in Harris County, and you have a state of 27.8 million people, and you have a flooding, you have a natural disaster of this scope. This is not just on the coast and a storm surge. This was a level of crisis far beyond that. So I kind of support what King said in his op-ed, and I support what Mayor Turner said. But at the end of the day, the real question is not necessarily could this have been predicted. It's does the state have the resources to help prevent a crisis like this? And are we prepared either now or in the future to spend money to try to get Harris County back to the economic engine and the petrochemical engine that it has been for our state and our country?
Let's talk about that. We have about a minute left. So real quickly, I mean, have the decisions that lawmakers have made put them in a good position to deal with this?
I think they could have made better decisions. I think all of those decisions cost money. So, it is not, some slam dunk deal. But yes, I think we're in for a long, protracted, and good debate over flood control, over future zoning and planning and impervious cover, and that is a debate that has been long overdue in Houston.
I think you've got a couple of things. Number one is the last 3 or 4 sessions have been in some ways defined by whether or not Texans would approve or disapprove of spending of the rainy day fund. We're calling it the rainy day fund, right? I mean, no one could deny the level of disaster that we're in. The governor's from Houston, the lieutenant governor's from Houston. Obviously Houston has the largest delegation as the largest city in the state. There will be a massive effort, I think, politically, to spend money from the rainy day fund to address some of these concerns that we will see. And the question here is, are we going to really wait until January 2019 to have that conversation? Or should the leaders of this state, once the immediate crisis has borne down, have some sort of interim step to assure Texans that live in this area, this is our plan to get you back where you were?
A lot of work ahead. Guys, thank you very much for joining us. We appreciate it, and we will be right back. Before we go, we wanted to make sure you know of the many ways to help fellow Texans in need. Several nonprofits in Central Texas are taking donations for those who have survived Harvey. That includes the Salvation Army, the Red Cross, the San Antonio and the Central Texas Food Bank, Austin and San Antonio Pets Alive, as well as the Austin Disaster Relief Network. Officials at the Red Cross of Central Texas and South Texas say monetary donations give immediate disaster relief. You can text the word Harvey to 90999 to make a $10 donation right now. If you know someone living in a disaster area, you can send money straight to their home. The United Way gives you the option to send your donation to a county of your choosing. Shelters, including the George R. Brown Convention Center in Houston and the K. Bailey Hutchinson Center in Dallas, list exactly what they want on their websites. They're typically in need of wheelchairs, baby food, new clothes, and medical supplies. And there is always a need for blood donations. Houston needs 2,000 units of blood from one center in Bexar County. That's 5 times the center's daily average. We caught up with one man who says he did not have to think twice about donating.
There are people who need it. And, you know, it's a couple hours out of your life. I mean, what's that? You know?
We have even more details on our website. Just look for how to help on our homepage. The storm may be moving out, but the recovery efforts have only just begun. Thanks for joining us for our special 1-hour edition of Capital Tonight. We'll continue to be covering the storm in the weeks to come and keeping Texans informed on how they can help. For now, I'm Karina Kling. Stay safe out there and good night.